10, 9, 8. Hello, hello, and welcome back. It's part 2 of Day 9 Daily number 330. It's going to be a little Sheth vs. Socke action as chosen by you. I'm going to be delighted to take any questions that you so have as to what is going on at this point in time. What we saw in the opening stage was some pretty basic decision making that I think is quite, I guess I would call it ordinary, but at the same time it can be very difficult to kind of discover and or to be able to identify the reason why. Like the stalker push out. A lot of people will see someone do it, try it a couple times and it'll work, and then try it a couple more times and it won't work, and they'll say, I guess I'm not good enough for it. And they'll just recoil away from all these correct decisions. But if you can just say something like, before 6 minutes, I am always safe, now you know. What I wanted to talk a little bit about right now as we're waiting for some questions to roll in from the Choose Your Own Adventure Daily. We see that Socke is going for a 5 warp gate style. And this whole mix is really gone out of style. Just because of the fact that there was a time when all Protosses would just go 5 to 6 warp gate all in on 2 bases versus Zergs. So Zergs would just figure out how to hold the all in and then they would win. Boom! Yeah, there you go. It's super simple and ultra easy. But Zergs eventually figured out how to hold it off, and there you go. But the Protosses then started to do things like go for faster robos. Like, I remember Naniwa against Slush. I saw him do a game where he got a Twilight Council and a robo really fast, and he got a big Immortal Blink Stalker push. We see Huck doing cool things where he's getting a lot of Blink Stalkers before doing anything else. We see people going for fast Stargates like OGSMC and taking faster thirds. These are all variants of people steering away from these huge warp gate all-in styles. But since this game is a little long, I'm quite interested in the fact that Socke is going for this 5 warp gate. He's also getting a +1, which makes his zealots burn through Zerglings. And meanwhile in camp, Sheth, this is one reason I do love an early evolution chamber. I don't necessarily know about the timing of lining these guys up. Part of me feels like we could have snuck this out earlier, or maybe delayed this Roach Horn a little bit. It's not the biggest deal, considering they're both quite cheap anyways. But getting the Zergling Plus upgrade, because in these early attacks with lots of force fields, what we'll end up feeling is that the Zerglings can slip through the cracks and not get shoved around so much. They won't get shoved around so much, and then we can slip the Zerglings through the cracks and deal a lot of damage. Also, we can get in there and really pick off sentries if we have this plus upgrade. One thing to note, I hate these force fields by Socke. What I'm now about to tell you is one of my most favoritist lessons of all time in StarCraft 2. Get ready for the most unbelievably smart thing you're about to hear. This is a little rant. What we're about to see is the biggest instance of it, or an instance of it that we've seen thus far. Assumptions. A lot of times if I come up to you and I say, build me a chair, you will get out your toolbox, you will open it up, and you will start building chairs, hammering away, and everything's good. But the problem that a lot of people don't do is ever ask themselves, do I have the right tools? Am I doing the appropriate things? Or am I doing the appropriate thing using these tools in the first place? Should I have gone for another toolbox? And what I'm referring to in the StarCraft sense is a lot of times there's these rules and assumptions that you make that are so difficult to fix because they're your starting point, they're what you're working with, they're what you are assuming to be true. So let me come back to this example right here. Let me pop back, where we have these Zerglings, and we're moving out with our sentries. Now, why do force fields go behind units like this? Why would you do this? Why would you throw the force fields behind? Well, it's to trap the units, so that way these guys don't move, and your zealots, or other units, can pick them off. Very simple logic, right? Very simple logic. We just want to trap them and crush them. Now, the problem is, a lot of times then people say, well, what I'm trying to do is to trap his units with force fields. That is what I'm trying to do. That is actually wrong. Do you see how that sounds so normal? You're trying to trap the units. You're trying to wrap around and grab and trap them. That's what everyone does with force fields. That's actually wrong. What you want is for the units to not move so that you can kill them. If the units start moving, you can then prevent them from doing so with nice force fields. But as we're going to see here, Sheth is not watching. If I go to the Sheth cam, and on the mini-map, see, here comes the force fields. They're coming up right now. Alright, so we see him spreading creep. Our forces are under attack. He's vomiting creep. These literally didn't do anything. These literally didn't do anything. We threw them down. The Zerglings marched off to their death. We wasted 3 force fields right there. And a lot of you are saying, well, what does that mean, Day 9? Does it mean that I should always not force field, hoping that he's not looking? Absolutely not. But your decision-making now can be fixed by saying, how do I get his guys to not move? For instance, let's say I have a Marine Marauder ball, and I want to throw down a force field. But I want to use the correct assumption of I want these units not to move. Where should I throw down my force fields? Let's say it takes 3 force fields to block it. 1 at the left, 1 at the right, and 1 in the middle. Where should I throw down my force field? The most correct place is to throw 1 down in the middle, and then wait. You don't throw down all 3 because you don't need to trap his units. You need his units to not move. If you throw down 1 in the middle, if he moves to the right, then you throw down a second force field at the right. If he moves to the left, then you throw down another force field to the left. And if he moves like back, then forth, then you can trap with all 3. But what a lot of times we're seeing in pro play is these goofy looking force fields where suddenly someone will throw down just 1 and then the opponent won't move because the opponent knows, yeah, if I do try to move, he's just going to force field this side and then force field the other side. And then I will have been doing no damage while I'm moving. And now what's happened is someone has saved a ton of extra force fields. So for however fun it is, you know, for someone like me when I'm commentating at like MLG this weekend, when you see 1 force field thrown down in a random place and it doesn't do anything, think about where the units would move in relation to that. So that was a very long rant, but it's still important to note that often there are little assumptions that you will make, like, oop, gotta trap these lings, that may not actually be true. And it's important to just take time, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, to say, okay, am I just thinking about stuff at a fundamental level all freaking wrong? So what I'm feeling right now is that Socke didn't need this extra gateway because it's not actually building anything. It's not even actually fucking building anything. How disappointing. But either way, we do see that our good friend, the Sheth, has only just now begun to make units, and he's going to be making a good mixture of Zerglings and Roaches. And at this point in time, we see that the +1 is done. Socke is getting a Twilight Council. Where is it? There it is. So he can get Blink or Dark Templar or something along those lines. I really strongly am of the opinion that we probably didn't need this. If we didn't get it, as we can see, we would have had the same amount of units. We would have gotten our upgrade. I think this is a fairly typical thing to happen. I wonder if there is a reason why, but, I mean, for me, I don't try to over-obsess about, why are the pros doing those things? I bet they know so much that I don't. I have an intuition about StarCraft, and it's okay to trust myself. I mean, even if you are, like, silver, you know, it's okay for you to be like, that seems like a waste. Not be like, that is a waste, and Socke is awful, and I hope no one ever marries him. You know, you don't have to go over the top with it or anything. But, you know, it's great to just be like, no, I don't really do that. That doesn't seem like something up my alley. Oh my god, did you hear the noise of that? I thought a Nidus horn went off. Frightened me. So here comes this idea of waiting till the very, very last second. I do think that Sheth probably should have begun making some units earlier. But he's going to pull these drones back. He says to himself, you know what? I don't have the appropriate unit count. And he is actually just going to sack that expansion. And this is a decision that I think is very hard to self-motivate to do. We do have some extra Zerglings over here, just trying to pick some stuff off. This is not the optimal angle. I think Sheth was just waiting and probably got a little bit surprised by this warp-in. But regardless, I like that Sheth is more than willing to just take a hit here. We see that he's actually still pretty even in food. He was ahead in food before he lost all those frickin' units. Sheth is just going to, simply, calmly rebuild in the unit counting station. We see that he's not that awful off into drones. And we see our good friend Socke now adding on a robotics facility. And you know what I'm seeing right now? I'm seeing the main reason why this 5 warp gate went out of style. We did this big push. It killed off this expansion. Now what? Well, we haven't really begun getting a third. We don't really have any way to get any sort of detection out. We have only just begun our blink. Now begins a period where all we really have is a bunch of muscle. And it's going to take a long time for us to transition out of that period. Oh my god, the coffee isn't working. Now this is something that I actually don't understand. I'll be quite honest with you. Why the hell is it the missile attack level 1 now? Is it because we have so many roaches? Is it because we're not going to be building Zerglings that much anymore? What would be wrong with researching a +2 melee attack and going for more Zerglings right now? I'm not sure. I actually genuinely do not know. I'll have to ask Sheth about that sometime. And I would ring him up on Skype, but of course my Skype's totally crashed, as you could hear by all my dink in the breaks. Ding, 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 ding. So Sheth doing a good job of spotting. This is one of these big moments of calm that you must have as if you want to be good. You just have to manage expansions. All Grandmaster play, all of it is just about managing their expansions. That is it. That is the core essence flowing through everything. It's all about getting more money and trying to make him not get as much money. And managing your expansion count versus his expansion count. You need to do a lot of spotting on expos. You absolutely must. And some of you are saying things like, well, I have a really great timing push, and I am a high masters player, so, And whether you have this good timing push or not, the problem is, strategies are always going to be changing, they're always going to be shifting, they're always going to be evolving. But the one thing that's never ever going to change is the fact that people need more expansions to do whatever it is that they want to do. So, if you can manage expansions for whatever set of resources you're doing, you're going to start realizing some cool spots to win. For instance, oh, he's taking 2 bases. I'm trying to batter him before he gets going. So you're attacking and you're poking and prodding. And then there comes a point where you realize he's low on money. I don't ever need to attack the front of his base at all, ever again. I just need to try to prevent him from taking a third. It's kind of funny because I was playing some 2v2s last night, and there were a lot of games where it was just like, all right, well, they cannot get a third base for either of them. So whenever one pops up, we're just going to go over it, we're going to kill that off, and we're going to pull back hard to the front of our base. And then we're going to go off and kill their other third. We're going to pull back hard to the front of our base. There's no reason to really do anything nutty like that. So, Sheth doing a good job managing the expansions. A lot of pretty, I don't want to call them simple concepts, but a lot of the core concepts we're getting the chance to discuss a lot today. We do see Socke now getting himself his observers, getting himself his blink, building those cannons in the base, and it's been a period of passivity for the Protoss player, and I think it's important to note the passivity from both of them. Zerg's obviously passive because, well, we just lost our hatchery, so gotta rebuild our hatchery. But Socke had the, what the hell do I transition to moment. He had a midlife crisis as the Protoss pieces. So now what he's going to do is he's going to make a little happy clown face. We see 2 eyes, a nose, and 2 round cheeks that are the warping in left and right gateways. And he's just going to be bouncing back and forth, controlling the space between here and here. Yeah, look at him moving forward, moving all the way back. What was one of the big things that we discussed in part 1? How amazing it was that Socke simply moved forward and moved all the way back again. In about 3 minutes, we're going to start taking some questions of what you see going on and what you would like to see going on. And we'll just take those questions. and this is another really good thing to transition into as a Protoss player. If you're going to be passive for a long period of time, begin devoting all your Chrono Boost to your ++ ups. Because if you can come out with a 3-1 army instead of a 2-1 army, you're going to be winning a lot more battles. My god, my voice is just so crickly, crackly, grossly, oosily. And interestingly, we've been talking about mostly Protoss up to this point. Sheth has calmly retaken his expansion. He's snuck in a few extra drones, so now he has 69. Titter, titter, I am so juvenile. But what I like a lot is that here's the Roach force that we built early on. Here's the Zergling force that we built early on. And now we're incorporating in some Infestors. I think one of the biggest tragedies of that lower level transition is that the thing you transition into does not support the thing that you were building beforehand. Like, here's an easy one. I opened up with a lot of Stalkers. It is good then to transition into Blink. Aha! You see how Blink helps all these units I already have? If you opened up with a big Zealot Archon push and then you started to go for Blink, I would laugh. It's not necessarily that it's bad, it's that it's really, really difficult for it to be good. You can pull it off and be an amazing genius, but most of the time, it's just Occam's razor. Just think simply, right? You want to get things that support what you did beforehand. Like, what would be a bad choice for Zerg in this circumstance? What would be bad? I think that probably trying to start getting a lot of Mutalisks right now would be a little off. I mean, we have Zergling Roach, and we're kind of gas broke, and we're just trying to re-grab our footing with retaking our third base. So that sort of transition doesn't really seem to help us that much, because the Mutalisks won't really work well with our Zergling Roach force. We see that the Infestors popping out. Infestors work amazingly with Zergling Roach. We can easily get the fungal growths off to be able to wrap around them. Zerglings and Roaches are low on gas. Infestors are high on gas and lower on minerals. The resources allow them to integrate a little bit better, integrating so greatly. So the Infestors are always a really, really good choice to pop out in there. There was a great game where Nest-T was against the Protoss recently. Look, I'll just tell you, it was Hong on Prime. This is not a spoiler, even though I love to make fake spoilers all the time. What happened is we saw the Zerg player get a lot of Hydralisks. Big numbers of Hydralisks. And Hydralisks are very, very expensive on the gas. It's a little bit more difficult to transition into the Infestors in that case, if there was a big Hydra-heavy force from Sheth. So you always want to think about, does this new thing I'm getting help what my old stuff is? It's a pretty simple idea, but just make sure you're asking yourself very, very, very frequently. Again, it kind of comes back to this assumption thing. A lot of times, if I've always gone Infestor after I open Hydra, you never stop to say, is it bad to do this? So let's take some questions. Muffin Man, Dear Day 9, why do you always talk to us like we are children? Because I worry about you. I worry so much that you get on that ladder and things are scary. And I want them to be not scary. I want you to be scary. I want you to get on that playground, and I want you to just be taking that kickball and wrecking faces with it. My man. So, Day 9, is this kind of push generally effective? Wouldn't an Archon Speed Zealot mix be leaner and just as effective? So this is absolutely true, that the Zealot Archon push not only very, very effective, but becoming very popular lately, especially Cruncher style of play. Great series between Cruncher and Golden Foe U. I believe that's on Husky Starcraft's channel. Very, very, very effective. Now, why would you do a Stalker Sentry push over a Zealot Archon push? The big reason is the way that the timings line up. We opened up with a big Stalker push just off 5 Warp Gates and a Forge. So we just did the attack early, moved in, did a little bit of damage, and now we're pulling back because we don't have any good options for it. But, you know, you might say as Socke, I really want to put pressure on his third. I really don't like playing games against a Zerg who has a lot of bases up. So my solution to this is to do a big Stalker push. And if you're saying Zealot Archon, you really cannot prevent a fast third. So suddenly that problem you have, a solution can't be Zealot Archon, because Zealot Archon comes later. It's very strong, it's very lean, but It's just later. So another reasonable question, variant of that, might be, well, okay, you did this big Stalker Zealot, or Sentry push. Why not now go for a Zealot Archon? Well, again, it's this whole reason of, transitioning from something and transitioning to something. What did we have going on beforehand? A lot of Stalkers, so Blink makes most sense to us. If we tried to suddenly go Zealot Archon, we'd have a Stalker force with no Blink upgrade that's pretty big, and a smaller Zealot Archon force with all the upgrades. So we'd have a piece that was pretty good, and a big chunk that was alright. Want to have a little bit more focus in there. We are going to be taking, again, a brief 2-minute break. We're going to wrap this up. We're going to wrap this up at the end of that. So I am going to get myself some more coffee. Woo! Woo! Coffee, part 3 en route.